The British tax take each year is £1.7 trillion. So how can there not be enough money in the system when the budget of the government is £245 billion? For instance, I could run down 40 billion on defence, 70 billion on the NHS, 30 billion on education, 40 billion on social security, and then there's the other departments. So add it up, you know. Take a look on the government's own websites and see how much they actually spend each year, and tell me if I'm wrong. Because my research shows that there's a great big amount of money that has been lost somehow. And could it be because the Federal Reserve created the financial crisis by printing too much money and trying to export its inflation out into foreign housing schemes, and also through oil because of the link between the dollar and the petrodollar and oil. Incidentally, we are in two major wars. We're still fighting in Iraq and near the West, that is, and in Afghanistan. We have Tory cuts of defence and of police of 25% when we're in two major wars. How can this possibly be sustained? How can we fight against Al Qaeda, who have an annual intake of just Osama bin Laden alone of £48 billion a year? That's £2003 when the pound was worth almost twice as much as it is now. So you may add that up to double that amount in today's pound. Now, that is greater than the expenditure of the British Armed Forces each year, or the British Army, I should say, to be correct. Now, the problem is, faced with such massive cuts of up to £60 billion a year, will Britain strike back? Will the unions get onto the streets and strike? My heart, my emotions are for a strike. But when the UK economy is actually bouncing back from a double dip, to avoid a double dip recession, is this the right time to strike? Should we not give the situation a little bit more time, or should we try and prevent the cuts from happening? This is the dilemma of the unions and the dilemma of public opinion, because the public will have to support the unions or they will have to stand against the unions. Personally, I do not trust Bob Crow. Although I like the man as a person, I do not trust him for several reasons, which I can't go into on this video. But certainly, the RMT union is known for its being quite militant, but the TUC overall has taken a vote and has said that it will vote for strikes. But this union membership of this country is only 6.1 million people. But even so, let me explain the multiplier effect of why I support the multiplier effect in economics and why it's important for the unions to have jobs. Because if the guy in the union loses his job and he would have wanted to buy a carpet, then the guy who at the carpet factory will lose his job, and the guy who would have done the carpet factory's accounts and the IT guy who would have worked for him would have lost their jobs, because that's a negative multiplier effect. Now, the positive multiplier effect of not cutting would be to keep all those guys in jobs, and then they could hire more people. That is a multiplier effect in layman's terms. Okay? Now the problem is that George Osborne is taking a revenge on people who have done him no personal harm. Right? He has got an ideological reason for doing these cuts. It has got nothing to do with economics. The money is there. Labour underspent. The reason why they underspent is because the tax take is £1.7 trillion per year. But we've just had to fork out, Europe is bailing out the United States by $14.8 trillion. That's what the United States is indebting. They've got unsustainable debt. That is debt. If they could not unsupported debt, if they could not raise their taxes to 100%, they could still not pay off their debt, because their indebtedness above the 100% tax rate is over 155%. This is why the United States is dragging the rest of the world down. And all that money that we are forking out in Europe to help the United States is going to be spent by Obama on stimulus packages, which may not work, because a lot of America's infrastructure is over 50 years old. It hasn't been properly built since the 70s. Because of Obama blames this on Bush, but it's not completely Bush's fault. There's been other presidents before him who didn't do anything. So it's only really Reagan and the guys who were before him who actually invested in the United States economy. Although Americans may be able to pull me up on that. Now, will Britain strike back? That's the question of this vid, and I want your opinions. Send me lots of information and lots of comments, and let's see whether Britain does strike back. In my heart, I'm with the unions, but in my head, I'm against a strike actually, because I think we want to be in line and kilter with Europe. Europe is resurging back to full strength again, and we don't want to be dragged down again. We also have to not only think that although the Federal Reserve created this system, the Federal Reserve was also manipulating America. It's not the American people's fault. We've got to help the American people. They have to help Europe as well, and they have to help Great Britain. We are one nation, we are one people, and one society. Get some patriotism, people. Get some patriotism for this. This government needs some patriotism, because divided we fall, united we stand. Thanks for listening.